I'm John Frampton. I'm an associate professor in the School of Biomedical Engineering at Dalhousie University. My lab studies biomaterials that are useful for a variety of applications, including in the development of advanced personal protective equipment.
I'm Gary Markle, and I'm an associate professor of fashion and textiles at NSCAD University. And I'm currently engaged with collaborative work with Dr. John Frampton's lab at Dalhousie University, looking at PPE and the effects it's having on the environment and the local supply chain.
So our current project is a collaborative effort between Dalhousie University and NSCAD University. What we're trying to do is make a new material that can both filter particles from the air, particles such as viruses, but also kill those viruses upon contact.
NSCAD's really excited to partner with Dalhousie on this project, where we're bringing design and visualization aspects, as well as helping to look at locally derived fibers and the effect that these have in concert with polymers to aid in the protection of people from things such as the COVID-19 virus.
So my lab had been developing a fiber-based product for various applications, including for culturing cells as a substrate to grow those cells on, as well as potentially for wound care applications. And we've been working on that for a while, and we quickly learned that we were out of our depth in terms of our textile knowledge. So I went searching for people who could help me fill that knowledge gap. And the first person I came across in my online searches was Gary.
So meanwhile, over at NSCAD, we were looking for a fiber to experiment with, and we were looking for something that it turned out John Frampton's lab was creating right here in Halifax. And so when we were contacted by John, it was just like a very serendipitous moment.
So before the COVID-19 pandemic, we really didn't know how reliant we were on global supply chains for things like surgical masks, respirators, and other personal protective equipment. One way that we're beginning to approach this in a Nova Scotia context is to look at materials that can be found around us in our environment. So traditional sources of textiles like wools, linens, even things that you might not think could normally be made into textiles. For example, polymers from algae or shrimp carcasses even. So the goal is to be able to make these locally and have materials that approach the performance standards of the traditional personal protective equipment.
For about a decade now, NSCAD has been involved with research that has been looking into fiber sovereignty for the region. So when we see something like this, the current situation of the PPE being hard to find or source, and understanding that we've allowed the supply chains to become so offshore that we don't actually have fiber sovereignty, or even in this case, like manufacturing sovereignty. We're also looking at materials that in combination can actually be biodegradable. So our ultimate goal would be to be 100% biodegradable. We're not only then saving ourselves from infection, which is very important, and also mortality, but also that we're not burdening the planet with our own attempt to save ourselves.
So with the funding from the COVID Coalition grant, we're already starting to see economic impact in the form of we're hiring new people to work on this project, both at Dalhousie and at NSCAD. And going into the future, I think there's an opportunity to have locally produced and manufactured products that can be put on the market.
So it involves agriculture, it involves researchers and thinking, so highly qualified personnel. We're engaging with the chains that go deeply out into the agrarian aspects of the province, which are very, very prominent and important to the economy of this region. And so in a way, it's like looking at this very holistically and looking at it from in the sense of putting that power back into the hands of the population of this region.
So one of the very exciting things to come out of this research is the opportunity to develop a collaborative hub in Nova Scotia where we combine expertise from the life sciences, medicine, material science, and crafting communities to really come up with innovative solutions to global problems.
It's amazing to be thinking about something as horrific as a pandemic, inspiring the possibility for continued and deeper collaborations between the universities that exist within Nova Scotia, the Maritimes, and Canada, and globally, frankly. Because when knowledge is mobilized at that level, we see the most significant impacts in terms of the change that can take place. So it's known and it's researched that at the level of university, the profound effect as it spreads through the world comes from those institutions, and it spreads into communities in a very positive way and very rapidly. So it's exciting to see that Nova Scotia could become a hub for this kind of collaborative work.